All right, so we are recording. Good morning and welcome to another episode of Teacher Workout. Today is a recovery day. All right, so as you can see, we are on Zoom if you are tuning in with video. Today's guest is a retired superintendent in New Jersey, as well as the founder and first principal of Philadelphia's Magnet School Constitution High School, which is the only law, democracy, and history themed high school in Pennsylvania. Dr. Davidson is a university professor, as well as a basketball referee, basketball referee, and baseball and softball umpire. And he is the brother of my mother. Please welcome my Uncle Tommy, Dr. Thomas Davidson, to the show. Hi,
Hi,
Uncle
Christy.
Tommy. How are
Hi.
you?
It's a pleasure being here with you, and congratulations on your podcast and your career. Quite frankly, I'm very proud of everything that you've accomplished.
Thank you. Well, I've had you to look up to, so big shoes to fill here. um,
You say so. Thank you.
yeah. So I'm excited. As you know, I have just picked up where I left off finally with going for my doctorate degree. And I am working on Project Principal Dinger, all right, which is a new project of mine. And so I am in need of all of the advice that I can get. And I cannot think of a better person to sit down with as often as I can in these next few years to just hear, how did you how have you done everything that you've done in the last 41 years? It's absolutely incredible the contributions that you've made to education. And and I just can't even imagine the have you ever tried to do the math on the number of lives that you've touched when you think about all the kids that you've influenced between your years as not just a teacher but an administrator, principal, superintendent, and working in higher ed?
Well, once in a while, I'm in retirement now, and now I'm doing my adjunct teaching even more than I did in the past. So I have time to reflect, a lot more time to reflect, and it's been a remarkable, fulfilling career for me. I highly recommend education despite all the challenges. And there were challenges when I started back in 1972 when I graduated from Bucknell University, and there are challenges now. And I have no regrets whatsoever. I recommend the teaching profession for anyone who wants to get the more you give, as you know, Christy, as your mom and dad have taught you, um, as well as other influences, the more you give, the more you are receiving
Oh,
blessings.
absolutely.
So,
And there's so much
yeah.
to be passionate about in this field of education. So you said that there have been challenges along the way. Uh, what has changed along the way, and what has stayed the same in this field?
Well, there have always been challenges. When I first entered the teaching profession back in 1972, like I mentioned, I was a social studies teacher at a high school in Delaware County, near where I grew up in Norwood, where your mom and I grew up in Norwood.
Right?
And I used to sit in the faculty room during my prep time, and I would hear about, oh, not like it used to be, not like it used to be. Boy, were things better than the good old days. And I've heard that my whole career. Things were always better in the past. Well, when I entered the profession, like I said, 1972, things really changed. There was no more longer a dress code like we used to have in school, in the public schools. There were smoking areas and things like that. That has changed. That, interestingly enough, has changed. Come full cycle. There are no longer smoking areas in schools. As a matter of fact, there's a lot less smoking going on in at the high school level,
Yeah,
and um, and the
that's a good
dress
thing.
code. Kids are in uniforms more and more. So things just go in cycles. Things go in waves and everything else. But there's no doubt that society has changed. And as society has changed, so have the schools. Schools are only a reflection of society. So the advent of drugs, the advent of media, social media, the political climate has certainly changed. There's a lot more diversity, if you will, in political thought, left, right, ultra left, ultra right, or what have you. So as the society changes, so school has changes, sometimes for the better, sometimes for the worse. I will say that, but just like I had a very difficult, I want to say this, I had a very difficult first year of teaching. And
I did as well.
yeah, so I wouldn't wish that on anybody, but anyone getting into the teaching profession, let alone the administrative leadership role, you're going to have your challenges and you're going to have to learn how to adapt as much as you've learned from your coursework, your reading, your mentorships, your just experiencing your field experiences, uh, and will pale in comparison to the day-to-day challenges, thinking on your feet, um, that is necessary for a rewarding career.
Hmm. Do you enjoy that part of it, the thinking on your feet and every day being different day? And
Absolutely.
yeah,
You know, I venture to say most administrators spend more time in the classroom than I did. I spent 5 years, and I spent 5 years at the high school level, and also not 5 years at the high school level, but 5 years total, which included high school and middle school. So I thought I got a good basis of foundation, if you will. But there are a lot more administrators who spent more time in the classroom than I did, and there are, admittedly, portion of administrators who never spend time in the classroom too. I can talk about that difference if you like, um, as as we go forward in our conversation.
well, so you were pretty much on the fast track then. I mean,
I was definitely goal oriented. I After my disastrous first year, which by the way was of my own making, I didn't have the
mine as well. I have some, oh, just yeah, some pretty
I I
bad stories I could share. Go
I
ahead.
I didn't have the proper work ethic. I didn't have the proper mindset, and things got difficult because they would get difficult if I didn't have the proper work set. I wasn't preparing properly. One day after another snowballed, and even though I wasn't asked to leave, I probably should have been asked to leave. I left on my own and went back to grad school. I said I gotta, this. We didn't spend 4 years in college, and they're very expensive, which your grandmother and grandfather helped me a lot, getting me into a good school, Bucknell, which was expensive, still is even more expensive
Hmm.
now, even with
Hmm.
inflation. I can't waste that 4 years of education. I gotta get this thing together. So I spent a year going straight for my master's degree at Temple University, worked I paid for it myself, worked third shift jobs and things of that nature. Um, and then I ended up at the Chamonix School District and had my best year ever teaching. I had a lot of support there. I had met the department chairperson in my graduate school classes. He invited me to apply for the social studies position at the Chamonix Junior High, which no longer exists. And I had a great year. I had a great year, and I was off to the races, so to speak. I even enrolled. I even got my. I ended my master's degree program in the middle of the year, and I said to myself, this is what I want to do. This is what I want. This is where I want to be. And I put myself on a fairly fast track. I could have actually could have gone faster, but because of family responsibilities, along came a child and things like that. Certainly our marriage was a priority. Um, about 7 years later, I got my doctorate degree from Temple. And along the way, I went for interviews and things like that. The very first time I had an interview for social studies back then, and it's still true today, social studies and English teachers were in abundance. And it was
Hmm.
very, along with elementary school teachers, it was very difficult getting a social studies position. Well, the very first time I went for an interview,
it's a really fun class to teach. I've said myself, like, I'd love to teach social studies.
well, you know,
You
I'm
know,
glad you
of course
said
it's
that.
popular. Of course it's popular, you know?
The biggest shock I had is I figured, okay, this is something I love. And I found out a lot of kids didn't like social studies, didn't like the way it was taught. It was in their mind a lot of memorization, boring stuff that didn't mean anything to them. So I have to tell you, I just like as an administrator, I think outside the box
Hmm.
and I keep things interesting. So I always have been gratified by the student responses to how I taught, and it's even true now teaching at the graduate school levels as well as undergraduate. I think outside the box, which is a necessity for administrators, as far as I'm concerned. We have problems. We need solutions. We need new and different solutions. So I always consider myself a risk taker, if you will.
Hmm.
And when I first entered teaching and when I first entered administration, I didn't have a mindset like, I'm going to forge new ground. I'm going to create new things. That wasn't my purpose, but I found myself saying, no, things have to change. We have to do things differently. So along the way, I created two different middle school programs. I changed over two junior high schools into a middle school program. As you mentioned, excuse me, I was the first and founding principal of Constitution High School, a magnet high school in Philadelphia. And
Yep.
they wanted to see innovation. So we started with just a ninth
Right.
grade. We just started with the ninth grade class, and each year built up another one. Had excellent partners with the Constitution Center and Gilder
Hmm.
Lehrman Historical um, Society out of New York, as well as very, very influential and powerful Ballard Spahr law firm. So one of my, I hope, successes is I can coalesce people. I can bring people together and tap into the various talents. You can't do this all by yourself. You need ideas, resources, talents of a lot of people. If you want to be an administrator, you need to coalesce these folks and, if you will, facilitate agreement and support to go forward with your plans. So if I could look upon one aspect, several, I would think about if I have been successful, it's like working well with people, not being an autocrat, but rather facilitating decision making and program planning.
Okay. Do you have a favorite program? Like, was Constitution High School, was that your favorite project that you
Well,
worked on as an administrator? Or, like, looking back, was it
I
one of the
guess it
middle
was.
schools? Or yeah.
I remember, and I'm not trying to be braggadocio or anything, but I remember my first position. I was a vice principal in South Jersey, and a new teacher was there. She was very gracious, very sincere, very nice young lady. The kids loved her and everything. And so it was a large school. It was about 1,800 kids, seventh grade through 12th grade, double shifts, um, about 110 staff members. But he once made a remark to me after work, as the year went on, says, Dr. Davidson, well, I wasn't Dr. Mr. Davidson, I can envision you starting your whole schools. One of these days you're going to start. You're so this, you're so that. She was being complimentary. You're going to start your own school someday. And lo and behold, I did. I started Constitution High School, and that was my culminating experience. Out of my 41 years, I spent 10 years, 10 and a half years as the founding principal of Constitution High School, and working with a lot of talented people, working with uh, well-intentioned people for sure. We put together what I thought was a very interesting program of studies for the kids. To this day, it exists. I've been retired now for 8 years, and I go back every day, every graduation, and I give an award, the Founding Principals Award, and
Hmm.
um, I'm very happy with how things are going at Constitution High School.
Oh, that's awesome. Was it 2006 that Constitution High School? opened?
Yes, yeah,
Okay.
and the Philadelphia community principals and so on and so forth were really surprised because there were four different schools, innovative schools that opened up. One was affiliated with Microsoft at the time, the School of the Future. One was affiliated with the Franklin Institute, which
Mm-hmm.
is a Science Leadership Academy. One was affiliated with not alternative, but it's an offshoot of Central High School, which is the oldest high school and it's very, very good high school in Philadelphia. Select magnet school. There was
Oh, hold
affiliation
on
with
a
that.
second. Maria's knocking on the door. Hold on. All right. Sorry.
Okay. Okay.
It's better than having her like cry. Like it's better to just like say let's go through the 5 minutes than to have her like
I,
throw a complete fit, then it would be over. So
I understand. No, hold a second. I want to clean my glasses. It looks like I'm
all right.
a little cloudy there. Do I look better without the glasses? I probably look better, but I can't see myself that
Um
well.
I think however you're most comfortable is best because if you're squinting,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? If you're distracted, like it's just
Okay.
better if you're comfortable, I think.
All right. That's better. Okay.
So we were talking about Constitution High School
Yes.
and
Putting it together.
yeah, and you were saying so you go
Oh,
back
so there,
every year, you go back every year for the Founders Award.
yeah, I mentioned that starting there was like four innovative high schools, one of
Right.
which was Constitution High School. And they gave us the luxury of having, in my case, a half a year, but in other cases, a full year of planning without the kids, without a staff or a choir, slowly but surely putting the staff together. So they did it right in that sense. They gave us time, which was really in an urban school district such as Philadelphia, very unusual. But oftentimes, because of for whatever reasons, principals get thrown into at the last second. Okay, it's August 25th or something. We want you to be principal here or there or whatever. So it was sort of unheard of that we had all this time to plan and prepare. Although I will say, when I put together the middle school in Lawrenceville, New Jersey, I was principal of the junior high, but they gave me 2 years, to get things together. So in terms of planning for a career, preparation and things like that, it doesn't come overnight. There are things that you can do both formally and informally to get your career up and running. If that's what you desire.
Hmm.
The most important thing is to clarify your goals and um, just make a decision. And if I'm going to do this, this is I have a plan on how to get it done, as opposed to be whimsical or not totally committed, which has happened in our profession, of course. Um, but the key is, first of all, where do you want to feel most comfortable? And there's absolutely, positively, as a matter of fact, most people do in our profession stay in the classroom, which is
Hmm.
fine. Yeah, there are many reasons why someone might not want to be a vice principal or a principal or a school superintendent. Lots of good reasons. Excuse me. So clarify your goals, clarify and develop a plan. How do I achieve my goals? And if it's to be the best teacher ever, uh, that is a very, very worthy goal. As a matter of fact, it all happens in the classroom. Um, you can't replace a teacher. You can replace an administrator, but you can't replace a good teacher.
When the opportunity came up to work at the Downtown STEM Academy when it opened in 2011, being a magnet school and hearing, all of the exciting, unique opportunities that you had with opening Conestoga, or almost said Conestoga High School. Sorry, opening Constitution High School. I was really excited about that. I think that hearing your experiences had an effect on my wanting to come to STEM because I was at Haverford High School, and I had been there for 6 years. I thought I was going to be a lifer. But this was just a really cool, unique new opportunity, and it was STEM, and I teach science, and it was right down the road from me. But hearing about, can you, I mean, I already know the answer to this, but can you tell me some of the unique pieces of Constitution High School?
Wanted to be different, not crazy different, but just, unique and different. So in a sense, I remember an article came out when we first started, and the title of the newspaper article was "A School Where the Students Make the Rules." And that isn't necessarily totally true, but we formed the school like our United States government is formed. We had the kids and the faculty had a constitutional convention for 2 or 3 days of blocks of time for the first 2 or 3 days of school, putting together a constitution. And it was modeled after the United States Constitution. Um, and what was created was an executive function, a legislative function, and a judicial function. So the legislative function, there were just like there were the House of Representatives, the United States government, and the Senate. There are two houses in the legislative function branch. There's a House of Students, and
Mhm.
there is the Faculty Senate. And in order to make certain rules, we had certain guidelines and everything, but in order to make rules, one or the other branch could pass a rule, pass a law, if you will. And if the other branch agreed to it, it would come to me as the executive branch um, for signature, and it became a law. And when there was a dispute about the interpretation of the law or things of that nature, we had a judicial branch. We had a court, like the Supreme Court, and that consisted of 5 students and 4 faculty members. So that's how that's
Wow.
how that's how we functioned. And we even got written up in legal journals and things of that nature. So that's
And
just one example.
you had an actual courtroom in your school.
Yes, yes, yes. We had I'm glad you mentioned that. We had our own courtroom. The um the district rented space from a landlord, a deep, residential landlord, if you will, office landlord in Philadelphia, and they converted it into a school. It used to be an institute for ethnic studies, I think, if you will, uh, which can contain a lot of documents and archives and things like that, having to do with immigration and ethnic studies. Well, that was converted into a school, and they had a courthouse. Beautiful. Have you ever seen it? Did you visit a school, Christy? I think.
No, you want to know why? It was because I started teaching in 2005. So my first year teaching was 2005, and then Constitution High School opened in 2006, and we always had school at the same time. And I remembered a couple times I'd wanted to come in like over the summer or something, and you're like, oh, you really got to come in when the kids are here. You really got to come in when the kids are here. Well, you know how hard it is, like as a teacher, to take a day off. So I never got there, and yeah,
Okay.
that is
Right.
one of my regrets. But my mom was there. My mom was there. Do you remember giving my mom a
Yes.
tour?
Your
Yeah.
mom and your aunt Beth, your aunt Christine
Uh-huh.
came by.
Yep.
Yep.
Hmm.
Yep. I think Katie came too. I
Yeah.
think
So I think
she
she
was
was
there. Your sister.
still, yes, yes. Yeah, I think she was able to. She's a nurse.
Yeah.
She has a different schedule.
So it was a courtroom. It was a courtroom with a jury box and a desk, if you will, the bench for the teacher, and it was a classroom. It was a classroom, but it could be easily rearranged for it to be a courthouse for a courtroom series. So the very first court case that we had was kind of interesting. Because in the Constitution, They made a president can no longer serve if there are so many absences or latenesses. So we had an election, and this fine young man got elected. But then all of a sudden, it was discovered he's been absent, and so we checked the Constitution, and the student council advisor, student government advisor, because we had, of course, we had um, a faculty advisor. Oh my gosh, we have to change this. We have to change this. We can't let this happen. Todd was his name. He's had too many absences and latenesses. So I said, Lisa, which is the faculty member's name, we have a court. We'll take it to court, and we'll let the Supreme Court decide. The faculty student court is what we called it. So I actually read the case, if you will.
And was this
Um,
poor kid on trial?
his case was on trial. He had a First of all, the kids had really good legal experiences. We had a mock trial team. We had
Mhm.
internships
They
down at
had
Ballard
a
Spa.
real appreciation for this process.
We had job shadowing at Ballard Spa and Mark. So they were really getting immersed in the law.
Oh, right.
So
Okay.
Todd had a fellow student defend the situation.
Wow. That's great.
So
That
so
is so
imagine
cool.
imagine that we had like five, I think only four faculty members and five students, nine total, be on the Supreme Court, and they ruled not in favor of Todd. They installed the runner-up to the student council president.
All right. So tell me more. So what happened with Todd then?
Well, um, Todd graciously accepted his loss, so to speak, the decision, and he decided to run again as a junior going into his senior year, and he won. He
Okay.
won. He kept a good attitude. He became manager of the basketball team, a highly successful basketball team, and he was a nice kid. And he went on to college. We were a college prep high school. I don't necessarily advocate college for everybody. College is not necessary for everybody, but part of our mission was to be a college prep high school. He went to college.
Another similarity between STEM
Uh-huh.
and
And
Constitution High School.
and now he's teaching as a high school teacher, I think in Virginia.
Oh, oh,
Yeah.
that's pretty cool.
Yeah, that's very cool.
Nice.
Very cool. So I'm proud of Todd. We now, as you know, we have a law themed high school. We have lawyers who have um, now in the field who become lawyers after all these years. One of the reason Ballard Spar got involved is they wanted to generate a pipeline of more additional minority
Mhm.
lawyers. 85% of
Oh,
85% of our students were minorities.
right.
Um, and all the law firms want to have lawyers who look like their clients,
Hmm.
uh, proper representation. So
Absolutely.
they Valspar really took our kids under their wings, and
That's awesome.
yeah, produced really fine mock trial teams, which was cool. I used to love going to the mock trial team competition, and and they had a team of Valspar lawyers as coaches. It was really an awesome experience. It still is.
That's great. Um, and you had no bells also, right? That was another similarity
Well,
between
no bells,
STEM
but
and
that's not that's
Constitution High School.
well, I'll tell you two sides of that story. First of all, I'm sure I was never in favor of bells. Bells like it's like a factory like atmosphere.
Right.
Number one.
Outdated.
Number two, when you have bells, I've never been in a school yet where I saw when a bell went off for lateness, all the kids were in class. They sort of just stroll in anyway. It was something like that.
Hmm.
What I what I this was way before Constitution. I was in the two middle schools, and other places that didn't have bells. So it wasn't original with me. And this is part of the culture. Kids get used to it.
Hmm.
So you need, you need to set the tone, and as a teacher, as an administrator, or whatever, that okay, you only have so many minutes to get to class. Let's get going. And there's if you have good teaching going on, kids are and positive experiences going on in the classroom, kids are, kids want to show up. They have
Hmm.
their little socialization, walking to and from class, go into the lockers or whatever. And now it's time to be in class. However, I will say that, oh, that was another thing. That was another thing. Um, there was a certain amount of dissatisfaction with having no bells. So the
By the
kids,
teachers or who?
teachers and the kids, they
Okay.
passed, they passed the bill
Oh, did they to get the bells back?
to get
Oh,
bells.
but then what happened? So what happened with that?
Ready for this?
Yeah.
I vetoed the bill.
I love it.
I used to say, to everybody, um, I'm like the president of the United States, except for one thing. You can't impeach me. You can't impeach me. Although maybe impeachment's been kind of a popular thing around our country these days. Um, I
Uh,
vetoed it on
Well,
grounds.
before we get too far into we don't want to get into politics here. Okay, I'm not
No, we don't.
retired yet. I know you
No,
are,
we
but
don't.
I'm
No,
not
yeah,
retired
I
yet,
know.
so
Uh,
I can't
I
get
hear
too
you.
far into politics yet. But
That's probably a good idea.
but before we go, what are your and this isn't going to be the last time that you and I talk about this, but what are some tips, some takeaways? I'm going to start my principal hours soon. What do you got for
Very good.
me?
Well, this is what I would tell any aspiring administrator. First of all, be the best at what you're doing right now. I have heard of, and I think I've known a few um, people who have become administrators like, boy, I hope he's a better administrator than he was a teacher because he wasn't that good of a teacher. You don't want that reputation. So be the best that you can be in the classroom. And then so that you can have high standards not only for yourself, but you'll have high standards for the kids.
Right. And lots of
And you'll
examples to go off
exactly,
of. And here, let me show you
exactly.
this and let me show you that. And yeah,
Right.
I completely agree.
Now, you mentioned earlier about being a problem solver. And I remember as a teacher, I was part of a study group. We were reading a book about education, and the superintendent, this was in Lawrenceville, New Jersey, had maybe 4 or 5 educators throughout the district, teachers, administrators, or what have you. And we read chapters of the book and we come in and discuss it. It was kind of cool, once a month or something. It was a book club. And he remarked, he was the one that inspired me to change the junior high to the middle school. He remarked that if you don't like problems, if you don't like solving problems, don't become an administrator because that's the best job description of an administrator.
Mhm. And
You're a problems.
that's like my favorite part of life is the
Well,
problem
that's great.
solving.
That's
So
great. So
yeah.
along that vein, be the teacher. Uh, no matter what, you should be this teacher, but you should especially be a teacher. Like, look for things to problems to solve,
Mhm.
school-wide problems. I remember when I was a teacher, um, they had this archaic belt schedule, pa- passing time, and things like that. And lunch became 45 minutes in the junior high at the time, um, and it became problematic because of lunch. 45 minutes of lunch for junior high kids are a lot of problems can happen. So I put together a schedule. It's nothing new. So it was what I experienced as my own student going through school in the Universe School District, and that kept the 45 minutes, 50 minutes, whatever length the class it was, um, but created a half an hour lunch period. So, and I don't think finally it wasn't accepted because the high school and the junior high, next door junior high, had to have the same schedule and they had problems with it because of this, that, and the other thing. So it never got accepted. But I got to be known as somebody who was putting forward some ideas. So join the committees and work with administrators. Um, and be known as somebody who's like rolling up her sleeves and digging into problems. And you've already said that's what you're all about. You like
Mhm.
you love the challenge of being a problem solver. So I would do that. Take your coursework, and I'm sure you are, seriously.
Mhm.
Um, I have to tell you, and I don't know if your audience will appreciate this, but coming out of college, and I told you I had a disastrous year, um, all because of me, really. Um, I went and got my master's degree, and it was in education, social studies education at Temple University. And I said to myself, I worked hard. I said, wow, that was easy. But it wasn't really easy, but because I worked so hard, it was manageable. I said, well, I might as well get my doctorate degree now. Kind of arrogant, but I I did take my doctorate degree especially seriously. Writing a dissertation and everything
Mhm.
else, and I matured. I matured as a person, and I became for me anyway, the best student. I endeavored to be the best student I could be. So take your school, your coursework seriously.
Oh, I
My favorite,
absolutely will. Yeah.
yeah, my
Already,
favorite.
this is part of my research right here. So,
Okay, good.
yeah.
My favorite course was school law, and I eventually taught school law at the graduate level. So I really enjoyed that. So that would be my um, second tip. Get involved with school, look for problems that'll help the school and enhance
Mhm.
your reputation. Be the best teacher you can be in your situation. Be the best teacher you can be. Establish your reputation. Not because necessarily you want to become an administrator, but because that's what you
The
want.
right thing
That's
to
just,
do. Yeah.
yeah. If you're being what you're supposed to be being, then your reputation will follow. Your positive reputation. Networking is very important. Um, I dare say my friends and wife and everything else before I became an administrator, when we would socialize, go out different venues and everything else, inevitably I would ask about job openings
Mhm.
and things like that, or get to know people. I told you I was an official, and back then I was an official too. I remember getting interviews because the principal of a school was also a football official.
Mhm.
But my very first, now I think about it, my very first administrative job, the superintendent, who I interviewed with the superintendent, was a big time official. He became eventually, years later, you've heard of the PIAA. Well,
Mhm.
he became the executive director of the NJSIAA, which is the equivalent, the New Jersey equivalent of the PIAA. So all those kinds of connections help. Part of the interview was, oh yeah, I recognize you. You did, we went to the same meetings together, and I remember, oh, this, that. So those connections help.
And so
So
then, yeah, and they already know who you were. Yeah.
now I do not believe in the theory. It's not what you know, it's who you know. That I don't believe. Um, because my wife once remarked, you know, I hear people say I don't know anybody. Well, Tom didn't know anybody either, but he never knew anybody, but he went out and got a job. In a sense, that was true. But the point I'm trying to make is knowing certain people may open up a door to an interview, but you have to th- you know establish your credentials, sell yourself,
Mhm.
if you will, in a professional way, to land that first administrative job. So I'll tell you one thing I did that, matter of fact, the principal, my very first administrative job was a vice principal. The principal, I was there, my first day was July when everybody had left, July 1st. And he said, you might want to look at the yearbook. And there were like 110 teachers. It was a large school, junior, senior high school. And get to know who the teachers are, what they teach, look at the schedule, see their pictures. Well, I knew by their faces every single teacher by name and what they taught, um, when all the teachers came back, and some of them came out, some of course came during the summer, but not necessarily to talk to me, but just to be there for a variety of reasons. So I knew everybody and I was like, wow, that really, I have to say, startled people. I will walk up to them and say, "Hi, Carol, how are you? I know you're teaching this, that. And I'm a former social studies teacher. I'm looking forward to working with you." It was just a very good first impression. Just like, because your audience might be interested to know that I saw one of your podcasts and with the teacher of the year.
Mr. Podlesny, yeah.
Yes. And one of his,
Citadel
things he
Heart of
did
Learning
was
Award winner. Mhm.
he did the same thing. He got to know
Well,
the
he
kids
does the
before.
same thing. Yep, he does the
Yeah.
same thing every year. And I didn't even know that. I knew that well, he's known for just building this amazing community in his classroom. He has like a Socratic he has this like Socratic seminar big table in his biology classroom, which you don't
Yeah.
usually see in a biology
Yeah.
classroom.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um and the kids had said, like the 10th graders, because I teach mostly ninth grade, they would come back and, and they would tell me they had Mr. P for bio. Mrs. Dinger, he learned all of our names on the first day, is what they would say. And so
Yeah.
that's what I thought it was. So when he told me that, oh, no, I actually study from the yearbook, weeks before school starts, I was like, oh my gosh, I never even dawned on me to be studying the yearbook weeks before school starts. So, but it's good to know that. I feel like, maybe
I,
that's what we should be. Maybe that's what we should be doing during these in-service days. Maybe we should be doing that, like
yeah.
going through the
Well, it's
yearbook
all
and
about relationships. Just like
yeah,
teaching is all, there's more similarities between the classroom and being the administrator in a school than there are dissimilarities. It's all about instruction. What's the key to effective teaching? Relationships. So it's all about establishing relationships. I used to tell the seventh graders coming in, they came in from the sixth grade to our middle school in Lawrenceville. I will know every one of your names. There's about 200 seventh graders. There's 400 kids in the school, seventh and eighth grade. I will know all your names by Christmas time. And I challenge you to come up to me and if I don't, see if I know your name. And I did.
and they
I
must have
I
gotten such a kick out of you.
well, um, I guess so.
I guess so.
I I was a bit of a hot dog, that's for sure. I had fun.
Yeah,
You have to have fun.
yeah.
You have to have fun. And you got to find the fun, and it's not always fun in games, but I had my moments, but difficult, very difficult moments. Anything you can think of that went on in school doing happened in my 41
But
years.
if you can help school be fun for the kids, and if you can help the kids
Yeah,
love school and love learning, and to be part of that and to
yeah,
facilitate, helping teachers too, and
yeah.
to be
I was a
that
bit
rock that the community can build around.
I was big
So
on culture.
important
I
role.
was
Yeah.
Yeah, I was big on culture. Now another tip I give administrators is don't develop the reputation of, you never see them. They're always in their
Right.
office,
Right. And that
right?
it all ties together. Right. I mean, the less you see someone, the less you're actually going to have
Yeah,
a relationship with them. Right. The more you see the person, the more you're going to feel like you know who they are. Right.
yeah.
So it
I
all fits together.
I had a goal every day to at least, I mean at least, get into each classroom. If it's only just like to walk in, stay a while, or just say hello, or if there was a lesson going on, join in the lesson. If the teacher asks a question, I raise my hand. Get into every single classroom every single day that I was in the building, which I was in the building
Every single
invariably.
classroom, every single day.
Yeah,
You got
yeah.
into every single classroom every single
That was
day.
my goal. That was my goal, and um, I could accomplish that.
That's amazing. That's so great.
Well, yeah, and I'll tell you another little story. Um, I After my first vice principal's job, I went to another middle school, um, and the large middle school. But as a vice principal, I was in charge of the seventh grade. The seventh grade had their own pod, if you will, their own pod, and own faculty. So I was like a principal of the seventh grade. And I came there in the middle of the year, because the other vice principal went on to become an elementary school principal. So after the second or third week, and these kids were seeing me coming in and out and, learning their, having conversations with them using their names and getting involved in the lessons and everything. I came into one classroom like I usually did, and then I left. And one little kid said to a teacher, because she told me about it afterwards, she goes, doesn't that guy have any paperwork to do in his office? So I thought that was a funny remark. A funny remark. So be visible.
Absolutely.
Be in the trenches, so to speak.
Hmm. Yeah, and
Uh,
I would want to mean, I mean, after 18 years of teaching, I'm
can't
gonna
believe
want
you
to be.
taught.
Can you
I
believe
can't believe
that?
it's been 18,
It's
18
been
years.
18 years. Yeah. I am slow and steady wins the race.
Amen.
I wanted to get this whole classroom thing down until I could package it and pass it around.
Well, you're going to do great. And obviously your person, one personality, yours in particular, you're enthusiastic, you're sincere, you're not phony, um, you're not being arrogant. Um, on the other hand, you're not being overly humble. You can stand up for yourself.
Have fun with it. Yeah. Oh, my
Have
daughter's
fun.
knocking on the door again. We better call it a night.
Really. All right.
Yeah.
Well, if you want to pick up or anything, uh,
Yeah. We'll have to do this again.
okay.
I
Was
think
that
we could
enough?
make it. I think we could make it into a whole series.
You want to make some closing statement for your podcast? I mean,
Thank you all. Thank you all for joining us. And Uncle Tommy, thank you so much. You
it's a
know,
pleasure.
words cannot express how grateful I am for everything.
Well, let's do it again sometime.
Okay. All
All
right.
right.
Thank
Good
you.
night. All
Bye.
right. Bye.